In today's clubland, it's safe to say almost every move by every DJ is captured on a video device. DJs now dominate the music charts, with dance music being the most profitable music genre, eclipsing both rock and pop. The definition of the term DJ has developed over time. Household known celebrities such as Paris Hilton can now secure multi-million-pound deals to appear to DJ at the Ibiza superclubs. A DJ's presence in town can cause a roadblock. Vinyl is a thing of yesteryear. Today it's all about USB sticks and digital technology. In the early 1990s this was far from the case. While Rave exploded out of the UK underground music scene, people didn't have mobile phones to document every moment. This means that some of the world's best clubs were hardly ever filmed. The anti-establishment ethos and the unity of Rave is now somewhat hard to prove. One particular club on the south coast of England, known as Sterns in Worthing, ran from 1990 until 1993, a time when Rave went from the illegal warehouse parties into the nightclubs and essentially laying the foundations for what is commonly known worldwide as clubbing. Numerous TV stations, including the BBC, contacted Sterns many times requesting to film the already infamous nightclub, but the filming policy was simple: no cameras allowed. What happened on the dance floor stayed on the dance floor. Sterns was a 19th century mansion. It wasn't the biggest club, however, for many people and world famous DJs, it was considered to be a pioneering club, a multi-floored space that helped define what has now become a multi-billion-dollar industry. A club where a generation of ravers, born out of the punk scenes of the previous decades, could dance in unison while simultaneously standing up against the authorities. A post-Thatcher era, defined by new music, designer drugs, and a loved-up attitude not seen since the 1960s. The only cameras that were allowed into Sterns were those of the organisers, and for the first time ever, it's time to see exactly what went on in this legendary nightclub. It's also time to unravel the story of the man behind Sterns, a local taxi driver known as Mensa, who lived a fast-lane, rag-to-riches fairy tale, proving himself to be a promoter who knew how to promote his interdance at Sterns raves. This is the story of Mensa and his nightclub called Sterns.
Well, it brings back all kinds of memories. Obviously, there's mixed memories of sadness and then, you know, happiness. I love West Sussex, and it was a very important part of my life, and as what it was meant to. It might be subconsciously that I haven't come back here. Yeah, it's the first time I've been here for quite a few years. Here we go, up the famous hill. This little place on the left is where the police erected their thing. I think they put a little tent up. I wasn't there actually at the time because I'd just been arrested with Mensa and was carted off to Littlehampton police station. But I think the police erected a little mini marquee there, and they were randomly stopping 1 in 3 cars or whatever and taking people in to search them. So it all happened on the same night. We were handcuffed to each other across the front of the car. The police did their operation here, and then later on that night they busted the farm as well. So they forced entry into the farm. It reminded me of when I first used to, I was a bit older than a lot of them. It was like my first kind of feelings of when I went nightclubbing in my life, which was a club called Dante's, which was a jazz funk club. You'd start to get tingles as you came up the hill, and the atmosphere was getting to almost a fever pitch as you got here. And where we've just pulled up now in the car, there would be a queue, at least from here and beyond, of people trying to get into the club.
Well, you'd roll up and, it'd be this long driveway in. So it's like driving into a stately home.
All I can remember is the house on the hill, because more often than not, it was the night time. I was getting 3, 4 o'clock. All I can remember is the house on the hill and the gravel under the tyres as I'm driving at the approach up the hill.
When he drove up to it, it felt like he was going to a haunted house. It's like, where are we going? Ooh!
As we drove up, there looked like a big grass verge, so you were supposed to go right up to the big roundabout and come back down. And we saw some cars crossing the verge and just going around and going. We thought, well, that's got to be it. Let's follow them.
And you've got this long driveway, and they had a huge car park.
All the trees and everything was like rusting in the wind, and you drive round and you see the light getting brighter and brighter. When you got to the top of the door and then you parked down the car park, you woke up.
And then we got up and it looked like a little castle, a little mansion house, and we got up and said, surely that's not it. And then we just see a load of nutters outside going, oh, that's got to be it.
The doorman looking at you and think, who you lot, and they go, okay, and the music let you in.
You get into this house and you go through the door, and then all of a sudden you go through and there's this huge space.
And the first thing you did when you went in, you went into the top room. It was drum and bass, but kind of really intelligent sound, but great.
And then they had, you go upstairs and there was another floor.
And you went down to the middle floor, and it's more housey, but you can also feel the heat and the tension.
So it was like a multi-floored space, very, very well designed and very well set out. And from the outside, you would have no clue that it looked like a nightclub inside. Once you got inside, you could lose yourself.
There was people everywhere doing everything. In all little corners, there was little rooms. I was like, wicked, I just wanted to play my set and get around.
Well, I remember thinking it was like an ant colony, because there was just so many people crawling all around the place, and it was just like, like ants following a pheromone scent. It was just lines of people going one way, lines of people going another way, and you wonder, where are these people going?
And he went downstairs into the basement, and that was where the techno was being played, and it was just pure energy. You just stood there and you just wafted in it all, and there was nothing else that made you feel like that ever.
The energy in Sterns, the ground floor, was absolutely electric. I can't think anywhere that the energy on the floor is like that. Probably Berlin, but that's as far as it goes. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest, hand on heart, it was electric.
It is quite haunting, really, coming back here and wondering where it would have ended. And there are, not just Mensa, there's quite a few people that are departed now that used to come here. There was Lord Goring that used to live up there. It was, I think he might have been the licensee or the manager that was employed by Richard Garrett. Richard bought him his title of Lord Goring. And then there's Richard, he's dead. Richard himself, Richard died a few years after Mensa from cancer. James Eade, another one of the guys that came, he died of cancer. Looking back, there's a lot of departed souls that feel like they might rest here.
It was just, this is when I was living at the farm, and then Mensa started to do this. I don't think his intentions were for it to explode into something massive or anything. He just started doing these nights at, it was called Toppers at the time. He called the night Wild on Wednesdays.
When I was 21, Mensa put on kind of the first night in a club in Bognor called Toppers, which was Wild on Wednesdays, and it kind of went from there, really.
I think I cut Mensa's hair and he came in and said he was starting this night on a Wednesday night in Toppers nightclub, and it was sort of like new house music. I think I sat at home for a day or so and thought, no, I'm going to go to the first one and see what it's all about. Probably 30, 40 people, but really good music, good atmosphere.
Part of the reason why it all went so well is that at the end of the night, it wasn't just over at 2, it was like, let's all go back to the farm. And I was in the car with my partner Mandy and Mensa and Rachel, and there was just a whole convoy of us that went back to the farm, and we was in the front lead car, and there was like 20 cars behind us, and it was an absolutely magical moment. And I didn't always congratulate Mensa that often, and I remember tapping on the back and going, nice one, mate. And that was quite rare, really, to do something like that with him.
I remember the very first event Mensa ever did at Wild on Wednesdays, and he only had £75 to his name. And he'd worked out how many people he needed to break even, and he was so worried that he wasn't going to be able to pay like all the DJs. Not that it was big money then at all, but he was really ultra concerned that he wasn't going to have enough money to pay everyone on that night. But luckily we did, and I think the tickets were like £3 or £3.50 a head or something like that. I remember more early days. I remember how Mensa got Toppers because he was taxi driving in Bognor at that time, just to get some money for rent for the farm, I think.
Mensa did Wild on Wednesday on his own, and then in Bognor there was lots of things happening around the area. There were illegal parties going off in Portsmouth and Racton and all sorts of areas, but there was nothing happening in the town. I knew a couple of people that had clubs. I said, do you want to do it? You know, should we do this between us? That's how we first started doing stuff.
Mensa and Eddie start their first joint events on Bognor Pier. The nights are a great success.
We never had a really, really good relationship with the pier. It was, you know, sometimes you get a phone call at the start of the week, oh, you can't go ahead on the weekend, even though we'd already sold tickets, booked DJs, and it was always that it could finish.
With the pier proving to be an unreliable location, Mensa and Eddie approach a local club called Sterns. After more successful nights, Mensa then gazumps Eddie and takes over the night on his own, whilst renaming it Interdance.
We had words over it as to how he insisted the guy offered it to him, the guy insisted that it was offered to both of us. I don't know, but...
Whilst it was a gentleman's agreement that Mensa had established with Sterns and the local authorities, there was nothing gentlemanly in the way that Mensa had gazumped his friend and business partner Eddie. But now Mensa had Sterns all to himself, and he was determined to make it a success.
My name's Colin Dale. I'm a DJ. Been DJing pretty much decades now, 2.5 decades. Sterns was in my top 3 clubs, probably my favourite club, and it's a club that's still in my top 5 today. Probably the most explosive dance floor I've ever played to, and honestly, that's really saying something. It just used to go off.
It just doesn't like, you know, you get like 500 people and then 200 or 300 dancing. It's like everybody going bananas. If you weren't dancing, you were fucking climbing up the stairs to get oxygen to get the hell out of there. Maybe go upstairs and check out more mellow music or different kind of vibe or whatever. But yeah, it was like a music pit, a kick drum pit.
You're inside a dark space with people going nuts to innovative dance music, and you got transformed from this stately home in Worthing into an international dance club.
Legal criminals with illegal product. Dope music is how I call it. Hypnotizing you, making you an addict, making you scream for more. It's a habit for God. It's also known as the fist of a peaceful assault. Suckers with the rhymes, don't leaders who step aside, don't risk, don't play. Cause it's not right to play with God, that's what we say. And
I remember when I first went down to the bunker, I went,
It's the underground, yeah.
What's going on down here? And then I remember the heat hitting me as I went in the door.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
And I was sweating buckets, and I thought, am I coming up?
Chocolate diets everywhere.
I thought, I'm coming up, ain't I? Anyway, I remember like, as we got in the DJ box, and that was one of the other things as well, the DJ box down there didn't have that much room.
Yeah, it was really slim, wasn't it? Really narrow and slim, like little
Yeah,
galley.
so I felt like I had to squeeze in and, like, you know, get your head down. And I remember all the sweat dripping off of the scene, and I was thinking, no, my hair, no, all that sweaty stuff. And I thought, Ev, remember what you're at, mate. You're at a rave, and it's going to happen, isn't it? You're going to get messy before the end of the night, so go with it. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm definitely coming up now because I'm feeling good. I'm starting to think the right way. And I just remember looking around thinking, what a shock.
It was psychedelic, yeah, with backdrops, yeah. If there weren't a backdrop, there'd be an oil painting. If there weren't an oil painting of, I don't know, little elves, yeah. With the woman with the boobs hanging out with ants crawling across them, anything like. It's artistic, why is it here? But it was different. You don't see many boobs hanging out with ants walking across them.
I would say that Sterns was probably one of the first super clubs. Even without it being a super club, it became one of the first super clubs. And when they put on the normal nights, there wasn't really that full. And when you put on a rave event, it was rammed. And it was rammed every single time. Coaches of people from Birmingham and from Manchester that would come down, which was just unbelievable. So here we are, country bumpkins, you know, having a bit of a rave downstairs at Sterns. And he got his coach from Manchester. It was just unbelievable.
My love affair with Sterns started on 29th of June 1991. So I was working for an organisation called the Pure Organisation, who at the time were running some great nights in London, Rage being their main night. And they went on tour, and I was lucky enough to be chosen as one of their DJs to play at Sterns. So yeah. We headed up to Worthing, and that's as soon as I got there, that's when my love affair started. I couldn't believe that such a place existed in what I considered to be in the middle of nowhere. I just felt, this is it. This is, you know, I feel comfortable here. I want to be part of this. I want to gate crash this party. So I was introduced to Mensa, and I sort of got in his ear straight away. I said, oh, you know, give me a slot here. And being the man he was, you know, he was very accommodating towards me. You know, he was almost like, I felt like I was talking to somebody that I'd known all my life, and in reality, you know, this was our first meeting, you know, and I was so in awe of Mensa, Sterns, the whole setup, that I used to go there when I wasn't booked. I was a raver, and this is the kind of place, this was the kind of world that I wanted to live in at that particular moment in time.
London came down in abundance. Are you mad? Right, this spread like wildfire. Sterns might as well be a London thing because it was that influential and it finished early. Do you know? People just wanted to be a part of it. It was that sort of vibe. Even if you wasn't playing out, that would be your plan A. If you was going out, to tell your friends like, you know what? I know a place. You're gonna love me for this. It was intense, it was throbbing. From a DJ perspective, it was an absolute joy to play because they were so responsive. They just went with you. It's like, you couldn't ask for anything better from the Sterns crowd. And it would live with me forever. It was that good.
It had a bit of a strange effect because it was glass mirrors around the walls, and as you walked in, you wouldn't really be able to tell how big it was because the mirrors obviously were reflecting the crowd back onto it, you know, and it just looked probably 4 or 5 times bigger than it actually was. It was a big space anyway, but it was always going down there. It just seemed like it was constantly packed all of the time.
The North had the Hacienda, and the North had all this press and attention on the Hacienda. This was our Southern Hacienda, but it was under the radar. But in a way, I liked it under the radar because it was our secret. The Hacienda needed all the big press angle and, you know, the huge support with the media behind it. But this didn't have any of that lot, and it was packed week after week. And it wasn't just local people, they were coming from all around the country. People are doing a full mission from the North, from Ireland, from Europe to come to this place. I don't think still today I've seen something so successful as this happen organically. You know, the clubs that I know that are successful has got this massive corporate marketing machine behind it. But it's not organic, and you feel that when you go in a club. You think, well, half the people are here just because they're bought into the media hype, half the people are here because they like the club. But back then, everybody was bang on into the club, and it was just such a happy vibe. I still, not just because I'm saying this in front of the camera, but everyone that I talk to, I still talk about that club, say, it was the best clubbing experience of my whole career. I've never experienced anything like it ever.
He was in school in Kent, as far as I know, just a normal school he went to. I think he was quite happy with his school life. Obviously didn't get on too well, it probably didn't reach qualification sort of standards. So I think when he was pretty young, he decided obviously that the educational route and going further with education probably wasn't the right way to go. So obviously a career path, he thought he'd be a hairdresser, a bit creative, and that's where he got the nickname of Mensa. Well, to be honest, I think it was because he wasn't that great a hairdresser, to be honest. Sad may it seem, but that's the story as I know it, and they nicknamed him Mensa for that reason.
He came down to this area because we met. I met him at a nightclub in Chatham, long time before he came here.
And I just remember this kind of lobster red glowing person, and he was a little bit spotty, I think, and a little bit odd looking. And I remember something that really struck me at the time is he seemed really uneasy and a little bit sort of paranoid or whatever. And I don't think I could have been more wrong. I think it must be a bad judgment of character, because he turned out to be a pretty wild person.
Well, sometimes he was great and sometimes he wasn't. You know, he was a lot of fun a lot of the time, and hectic and chaotic and a handful. Very argumentative. We had a big, very fiery relationship. There was a lot of fire there, and a lot of, you know, clash in our temperament, personality, you know.
If you got on the wrong side of Mensa, it wasn't a very nice place to be. I think he had a tough character. I think probably from how he was brought up in his childhood made him quite defensive sometimes.
If you wasn't getting on with him on that day, you didn't really want to be near him. They really quite profound memories for me, you know. And because I was near him a lot when I wasn't getting on with him, as well as when I was, it was pretty tough sometimes. You know, I go way back with him, and we've crossed over maybe even with girlfriends and things like that. And so, yeah, we were at war sometimes, and he usually won.
Mensa wasn't a tough guy by any means. He was the contrary to a tough guy. He was kind of slightly effeminate. You know, he'd been a hairdresser, although he was a good-looking guy. He liked to dance. You know, he was a good dancer, but he was certainly not tough. But he was hard in another sense. He would argue over a tenner with somebody, you know. He would stand there and have it off with a DJ. Like, the guy was haggling with him for like, I want 150 quid, and they would argue for half an hour for 50 quid. But that was the nature of the guy. He was very hard in terms of business and money. His business acumen was razor. But sometimes that got him in trouble, because he did fall out with people over the way he was.
First glance, you'd look at Mensa and think, oh, who's this guy? What's this guy? After knowing him the way I have and all the times I've met him, smart motherfucker. We kind of hit it off right away. You know, at that time, there was no real superstardom between anyone. There were fans and kids that liked the music and looked up to us in some ways, but, you know, so we got on as people. And then all of a sudden I'm at his club and, you know, being a great host, and I'm shocked by what I'm seeing. And then I just tear ass in there, and we just fucking clicked. And then every time I'd be booked over, I felt like I was going to a homey, cool, comfortable, friendly environment to work. I mean, obviously, if I wasn't fucking delivering, I'm sure the clever Mensa would have been like, yo, motherfucker. But, you know, we kept it all together. You know, as crazy as I might have been on the night, you know, and as crazy as he would have been in the morning or whatever was going on, we had the good balance between rocking up, doing it, and getting loose when we see each other, and every time it's hugs, kisses, what do we got? Let's get this, you know, very into the party.
Mensa was a very forceful person. He was like, right, Coxie, I need to have a meeting with you. He'll drive all the way up to my house. It wasn't a suit. They had a lot of money that basically came in and said, well, I want to put on some parties. He had no money. But he had a vision. He knew what he could do, and he could make money. That was the thing about it, and it was a good time to make money. All the big rave events that were going on at the time, they were quite sporadic, but Sterns in Worthing was all the time. There was always good DJ lineups that was on. So people didn't want to miss out. And the thing was about that was the money, he came in the end of the day, and then eventually, you know, he got his just desserts based on what he believed in. It never really happened to anyone else in such a way. You know, the scene, the rave scene was working, getting bigger and bigger and more accepted in the sense of what the people wanted at the time. So he came in at the right time, at a really good, he didn't come in, you know, 5 or 6 years later and say, right, I want to put on a party with Sterns. The rave scenes was Sterns. That was the thing about it. And all the bands that came down there, Adamski, Enjoy, Prodigy, you know, and they go down in this sweaty, hot dungeon of a place with a great sound system and absolutely blow the doors off.
Let's do it.
Dig this.
Let's do it.
Let the bass kick.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let the bass kick. Let the bass kick. Let the bass kick. Let the bass kick.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Before Mensa was running any of the clubs he was running, we used to spend our weekends mostly driving up to London and staying with old friends of Mensa's, a guy called Mark White, Whitey. A couple of times I remember doing it. He lived in a tower block somewhere, I don't even know where in London, with his twin sister. And we just used to record pirate radio stations, stay up all night listening to it. Mensa would record it on a cassette tape and we'd bring it back and listen to it wherever, at the farm. And it was just good new music that people just hadn't heard before, so.
And there was always someone at the farm. The farm was never quiet. There was never just us at the farm. There was always an entourage. People popped in and out all day. The tea was always on the go. Parties, selected people, but it was all around the house. The sound system was pumped up and it finished when everybody went home.
Well, it was a wonderful place. It was somewhere where everybody wanted to be. So many people wanted to go to the farm. It had a lot of intrigue and interest. You know, people would just loved the farm, didn't they?
Chaffinch's Farm, aka The Farm, was a property rented by Mensa and some of the Interdance crew. It was a secluded retreat and had a communal vibe about it. It was also the perfect after-party location in the middle of nowhere.
Well, the farm had 3 floors, didn't it? Obviously, our bedroom was at the top in the office, in 2 bedrooms. Yeah, it was in your old room. But we had the office opposite our bedroom at the farm, which was handy for work purposes. And a lot used to go on up there, didn't it, Mick?
Yeah, it was brilliant.
Parties were good.
Oh, we had some good parties, probably every Saturday.
Well, I was like the mum because I had my little girl Charis and she was a little, little baby. So I became like the matriarchal mum. It's very easy when a group of people live together and you all sort of are very disjointed and you live your separate lives, whereas because it was such a lovely house and it was a family house, I did my best to make it sort of like a family home for us all, and we all became family really.
The farm was really useful to everything because it was an extension of any nightclub, because at the time most of the clubs shut at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I just remember we used to have the rave, all have a good time, and then go back to the farm, stay there forever, and then try and get home somehow.
After partying is for me where community is formed. So I've always been a firm believer of a good after party. That's where community is really built. You get to know people, you start talking, you start communicating, you start bonding. And that was something that went on at Chaffinch's farm. And yeah, I'd had my fair share of after parties, but that was quite special. I think the fact that it was out in the middle of nowhere, it was a farm, you're in the countryside. I remember it being sunny, summer, beautiful weather, surrounded by people that had open hearts and open minds. It was something special.
It was just all about staying up all night and having fun. I mean, that's about it, really. It was a little bit more than that. It was, to me, that's the way I remember it. It was more of about an attitude about life, and it made me feel quite special and separate from, you know, the normal person and whatever. And it was just almost like a cult. I don't like to say that, but it made me feel like I belonged to something special.
I think it was just really exciting because it was really new, you know. The music was new and the drugs were new, and it was a new scene, you know, and it was like a big cult scene. Just at the end of the racing, where it all gone into the fields and there was 30,000 people turn up into a field, that all got put a stop to because it just got too big, basically, and the police had to do something about it, you know. And then, you know, this come off the back of that, and it was like a rave inside, you know, so I think that's why it was popular. And then the police got quite, you know, they started stamping down in and more stringent like searches on the way in and stuff, you know, and security, and which took the fun out of it a little bit, but to carry on doing it, I suppose that's what you have to do to get around the law, you know. So
for me, house music was the punk of that era, you know. The guys who made that music originally didn't really know too much what they were doing. They were, you know, you have your 3-chord wonders of the punks, you have your TB303, you know, novices who didn't know what the hell they were doing with that machine, making amazing sounds. So yeah, to me it was like DIY punk, and that was yeah, definitely a part of Sterns, that the anti-establishment kind of feel, definitely. When I was on Fantasy FM, the same thing. The guy who ran that, a guy called Foxy, his big part of it, he loved the music and the scene, but he told me, you know, half of the reason I do this is to get the kick out of beating the law, you know. So I feel that was probably something in Mensa's blood as well, actually.
My name's Tony Ladd. I'm a creative director in the graphics industry. The word rave first entered my vocabulary when I would come in on a Monday morning to teach the students in the media and graphics department, and half of them would be asleep, for example, and I'd sort of say, you know, what you've been doing this weekend? And they'd mention we'd been to a rave. I actually took it upon myself to work sort of at home in the evenings and produce a couple of flyers that I'd seen, and if you like, copy the information off an existing flyer, something I felt I could improve on. And I had friends that were friendly with Mensa, and obviously they showed them the artwork that I'd done, and he said, I'd like to meet this guy and see if we can work together on a proper production. The first ones, he laid down the brief, and then as we progressed and we got more in tune with each other, I knew what he wanted to say. There would be often times where there'd be a rival rave production going on the same weekend, and he was adamant that we would win, we would generate the most publicity, and our flyers would stand above the rest. So I knew that I had to go back with something a little bit special.
Flyers were an essential part of rave culture, and the cutting-edge Sterns flyers have proven to be relics of contemporary pop culture.
Mensa would take some popular subject and just adapt it to Sterns. They were taking like TV commercials or something like that, you know, something that everybody knew, and then just, you know, rephotographing it in Sterns way.
One of my favourite ones is when everybody complained all around that area, when it was all in the newspapers everywhere. The next flyer was all of the complaints and all the newspaper cuttings on the flyer, and that was one of my favourite ones, and I loved it, but I thought that could be the end of it. I personally have been brought up, you can't be like that, and he really went for it.
That's what you've got to do when you're top, mate.
And in them days as well, what it really took as well to build a brand, you'd have to really believe in yourself and get out there on the streets, because remember, you've got to remember, it was very underground. It weren't like, like everyone knew. It was a big movement, and like it felt really special to be a part of that. And it was just something that, your hairs would stand on end when you knew there was something going on, and like the big build up for it, because remember, you got to kind of keep it hush hush. There's no internet. It was getting out there, with your flyers and being personal, like here. There's top rave going on, top rave, yeah. Little flyer, pitch, you know what I mean? It was all very sort of like, I can't put it into words, but it was just special.
Hello. All right, strangers. Next time. Next week. All right, next week.
On the whole of the south coast, we probably only found about 3 or 4 printers that could actually cope with files of the sizes we were giving them. They were used to just bog standard straight text. We were spinning the text, we were extruding it, making it rainbow colours, and of course everything was getting bigger and bigger. We were learning, but the printers were also learning, because it was new technology to them, and they were working with colours and graphic techniques that they'd just not seen before. We'd be working Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday to get all the artwork done, off to the printers, proof the job, and then hit the button and print. And the size of the print runs were growing from 1,000 flyers in the early days, and eventually up to 50,000 flyers to make sure that we hit those punters.
He saw Sterns as a label, really. That was his thing. So for him, it was all relevant as long as it was about Sterns and about the people at Sterns and whatever.
With an established visual identity, philosophy, club and after-party location, Mensa's vision had become a reality.
It was a brilliant time. When you're in it and you're living it, you don't really realise. But I think looking back on it now, you actually realise what it was that was created at that time.
Well, it just felt so good. I was buying music, we were right in the heart of it, we were the ones who lived at the farm, and it was just all so special.
Well, that was a very proud moment when I opened that little photocopied magazine. Number 1, Rhythm Doctor. Number 2, Carl Cox. Yes!
It always looked illegal, didn't it?
Yeah.
But it was legal.
I thought there's no way this is going to be legal. There's going to be police turning up any time. You can't have parties in posh places like this.
I did notice loads of Londoners really starting to hit Sterns all of a sudden, and that's when it, for me, really started to explode.
Mensa was smart, and he utilised the size of the club. There was 4 floors altogether actually, and then there was outdoor areas, there was all these different areas, and he completely utilised it. He focused in on this new underground scene coming in, not one specific sound, but all the sounds, and he brought it all together. Clubs didn't know how to handle it. There's too many clubs and not enough people, and they needed to change, but no one knew what to do, how to do it. But like Mensa came along, he got it, he saw the vision, had the right venue, and then seeing that transition when he came in, the club was packed.
It was one of the earliest forms of, what everyone calls now viral. It was just word of mouth that went around, and it was viral, and everybody just wanted to do that. So in that way, to create it, I don't think you can can it. You just have to jump on with the means of today that you could use, which are underground.
The best thing ever for any club night or anything to happen is word of mouth. And people went away from this, and the word just spread, saying, wow, this is a club with this new style of underground music. Someone's actually doing it.
When I started in the summer of '91, it was when they were granted a gentleman's agreement to have the alternate all-nighters every other week, and then the other one was till 3 or 3:30 or whatever it was. And I think that was for the authorities to try and, because there was still quite a lot of illegal parties that were happening out in, whether it be houses or fields or wherever. I really do see that. They wanted to stop that and put an end to that and bring them all together almost where they knew that they were all under one roof.
With the authorities happy that Rave was being contained, Sterns fast became one of the most popular clubs in the United Kingdom while still keeping its underground roots. Over the following weeks, Mensa booked chart-topping acts such as Moby, The Prodigy, Enjoy and the Rat Pack to headline at Sterns, and the crowds kept coming.
For me, summer of '91 was it was like just a follow-on from the transition of going from illegal to legal, and that's how it was kind of like, you know, we had the Dance 91, the pure organisation doing the Brighton centres and things like that, which totally helped that kind of Sussex thing, you know, that East Sussex thing. You know, you had the Worthing and the Dorset thing going on, Hampshire, Sussex, Hampshire, Dorset kind of things, because Mensa also took the Interdance nights there, was it Halloween, to the Arts Centre in Poole, and that was it, coming from the warehouses into like the leisure centres and the places like that where, you know, you'd be getting a few thousand people in there. You know, big public places, like especially like the Brighton Centre, innit? It was like,
yeah, they were amazing. Like, you know, a few weeks before that, Margaret Thatcher was in there having like big meetings with her, and we're like, wow. Yeah. We're playing in like where Margaret Thatcher just had like big meetings, and there's been old boo everywhere and big security, and we're like, we're having a rave in there.
If 1991 was a summer of love, then 1992 was when things started getting messy. Organisations such as Fantasia and Universe were staging large-scale commercial raves, and the DJs were gaining worldwide popularity. The music also spawned various subgenres, including breakbeat, hard house, hardcore and techno.
The music got harder, all the hardcore was coming in, and then it was like early jungle drum and bass. It just changed, you know, and Mensa looked after us, you know, in hindsight, he did really look, he moved us around and give us, you know, put us where our music fit.
Back then, I was pretty much techno, Belgian techno, R&S records, a lot of German stuff as well, pretty much all techno though. But there was that split back then where you had some London DJs go with the drum and bass stuff, your Fabios, your Groove Rider, etc, etc. Myself, Dave Angel, Luke Slater, to a certain extent Carl Cox going off in that techno direction.
'92 started well for Sterns and Interdance until something completely unexpected happened. Following an undercover surveillance operation, the police mount an unprecedented raid on Sterns. "51 people are arrested for drug possession. Simultaneously, Chaffinch's farm is raided. The police also mount a roadside swoop on Mensa's car as he is driving to Sterns. Mensa is arrested.
There became a period that everything just intensified, and we started to get followed in the streets and everything, and it was the start of the end, if you like. The first problem had happened at Brighton Racecourse, the Rave of the races, and that was cancelled quite soon before it was due to go off.
The Worthing-based promoters, Interdance, want to sell 6,000 tickets at £20 each for the planned event on the 11th of September. Lewis Council has vetoed the plan. Today, the town's magistrates are being asked to overrule this decision and grant an occasional entertainment licence.
As we were unable to express ourselves orally at the meeting, we felt it wasn't really fair on the committee because we couldn't exactly explain where the site was, a specific area where it was going to be. So we've now taken it to appeal, and hopefully the magistrates will be very good today.
And then obviously there was the bust at Sterns, and the night that Mensa and I actually got busted, when we pulled up at Fontwell roundabout, we believed that it was we were getting robbed. There was a huge line-up. The car was full up with sound equipment, a lot of money, and we pulled up to this roundabout, and it just all hell broke loose, and it was actually dozens of policemen running towards us. We both looked at each other and said, we're getting robbed, but the reality is we were nicked.
What did I think of the cops? Wow, they had a hard-on for him like nobody's business. It's like music and drugs is a new thing, really now, in this country in the 60s and the South. And come on, really? Most of the time I was either going from another club or this was the last club on my trip. You know, the roads that going down there from London down south, the lights start to go less and less. But as you start getting closer and closer to fucking Sterns, you see fucking more and more fucking cops, like sort of, you just notice them, you know, driving around. As the club grew organically, so did the police. It became a mission for them.
In '92, when the drug bust started happening and the police started getting involved, it probably wasn't a bad thing because it was before that the quality of the drugs had started to change, and that's always going to be a problem when you get people that realise that they can make money out of selling shit to the youth. I think drugs were important for the development of house music generally in the late 80s, and it kind of went hand in hand with, you know, there was this, you know, a whole generation of youth being suppressed by Thatcherism and those horrible Tories, and then there was this new music coming through, and then this new drug MDMA hitting the scene, and LSD was also very prevalent. And I think at Sterns there was a big drug influence for sure, and I think drugs was a major part of the youth going there to get involved, but I think there was more to it than that.
You know, I just think whoever was on those councils, and maybe the actual town of Worthing, which I don't recall being so big, and slightly more suburban in a different way. But the thing is, the fucking house wasn't really near too much of that shit, if I recall. Who are you bothering? And why is it so important that you fuck this up?
1, 2, 3.
I mean, I get it. You do your job, you catch kids on drugs. That's the kids buying the drugs from the drug dealer that you're not fucking stopping. Is the club's job to do your fucking job? They were a little bit heavy-handed down there. I mean, even in New York at those parties, the cops weren't stupid. What are you gonna do with 500, 600, 700 people once you stop this? What are you gonna do? There's only, At maximum down there, how many cops could there possibly have been? 20? You know, 20 ball breakers with radios and cars and guns and whatever the fuck else they were doing. You know, and then gathering support from a conservative, whoever. I don't know this, but I think it's kind of right. You know, you could just see the way they were breaking these balls. They didn't really want that club to happen.
Sterns would have continued regardless, as did many clubs, although it had to go through that dark period because the clampdown of the officials on quality drugs. And if you make it really difficult for people to produce quality, then rogues are going to produce crap that are going to hurt people and be poisonous and poison minds. Drugs alone can't hold together a scene. Drugs alone can't form community. Drugs alone can't form a vision that would go on to become a worldwide culture. And that's what happened at Sterns.
In hindsight, they probably had a lot of pressure from residents nearby. Of course they knew what was going on in there. I'm sure they had people in there. It was probably more pressure from residents because you know, there was drug taking going on in there, but there was never any trouble in there as such. It was all quite controlled. The response from the police were, one, they were getting too successful, earning too much money. Other jealous promoters could have been involved as well, that wouldn't surprise me. And a combination of the residents as well. I suppose they had to be seen to do something. You know, if you look into it, it probably runs a lot deeper than we know, but who knows, you know, what was really happening there.
The clampdown that happened should have really been aimed at the real villains, the people that were making cheap drugs with cheap ingredients that were poisoning the youth. And I think the authorities have got a lot to answer to because of that.
I do enjoy coming here now with the younger people who are much more amiable than drunkards who used to get here and cause murders on the floor.
Yeah, now you're talking. So do you think it's a good reason why the police close the pub down?
I beg your pardon?
Do you think it's good that the police close the pub down?
If the police ever involve themselves in here, they don't know what they're even bothering about here. They don't know what they're talking about. They never have done, they never will. And as for the likes of a inspector called Barron, or whatever his name is, Barron, or whatever his name is, I'll tell you what, that man, you should come here, as I do. I'm 68, I enjoy every minute I'm in here, with no aggravation, everybody's happy, no problems. So what's he want?
Word of mouth spread that Sterns had been raided and the authorities set about closing Sterns down. Attendance figures declined as a result of the bad press. Mensa and Interdance spent the following months campaigning to keep Sterns open. But there is no denying the external factors were taking their toll on Mensa.
Well, Mensa was suddenly very insecure and very... He was desperate to try and keep a business going. I remember he had this sort of policy of like trying to earn money, even if it was sort of 50 quid a day, just doing something and running around all over the country.
I think after the raid, Mensa's mindset was he didn't want to be beaten. He wanted to continue and find a way around what had happened and not let the authorities win, and to carry on in whatever shape or form that he could to keep Interdance going as a business, because it was a business for him, and that, you know, it was his livelihood and something he loved and was very passionate at doing.
I think it had come to the end of it really. It was the police were getting really down on it, and making the security checks really almost making it impossible to go there to have a good time really. I think, you know what I mean, you had to empty all your belongings out into a plastic bag so people could look at it, and then when you go through, get them back and through a metal detector. You know, people getting pulled up on the way in, there's roadblocks on the way out.
I think all of us knew at some point it's got to come to an end, and that it was just really sad. You know, I think at that point I've been there for quite a few years, then 6, 7 years, and it was just sad having that attachment to that club that I love so much, the people around, Mensa, everyone there. It was just really sad knowing it's gonna finish. So it was so sad.
The reality of it was the club became too popular for its own good, and that was its downfall, because we had so many people trying to get to the club. You know, it would block the roads at times, and the Worthing Borough Council just were thinking this is actually getting too much for us to cope with now, so they pulled ranks.
24th of August 1993, word spread countrywide that this might be the last ever interdance at Sterns. Mensa booked LSD and Lenny D to play what would indeed be the last interdance at Sterns. Thousands of ravers flocked to Sterns to be a part of the history of the club.
I was super psyched to be the closer, knowing how it was going to be fucking crazy. But I was sad to see it go. But, you know, I was under the impression that Mensa would have done something else, or, you know, he was ready to do something else. Like, you know, he wasn't going to just roll over and sit in the house. So I just thought, all right, this is like a birth of something new. You know, either he's going to get a new club, or this will pan out over a month or so, and it'll be back up and running. You know what I mean? I mean, the word no doesn't exactly mean no. It's all, you know what I mean? I still had optimism. You know, club business. You know, you could take the night and go to another kind of mansion, or if you had enough loot, or build or get a room and really, you know, put the same vibe as best you could. So it was a bit of happiness and sadness all in one shot.
In a mishmash of white gloves, whistles and gabba techno, the lights went out on the underground for the last time.
Sterns should never have closed down, not at all, you know. It's just that the people that were basically running local government, the police, you know, even the neighbours, they couldn't understand why this place was so popular. It was the scared of the unknown, where in the end of the day, you know, something had to fall. Something that great had to fall and make a shot across the bow to everyone else. And with that, you know, they decided to make that, you know, the flagship of what was to come. You know, if anyone else decided to put on an event like that, it wasn't seen as a club event in any way, shape, or form. It was basically seen as a house of ill repute, which wasn't true. It was like the rave scene as a whole. I mean, there was the Sterns, it was Club UK. It was, you know, the rave scene as a whole, you know, with the whole criminal justice act, where you were not allowed to dance with more than 5 people with repetitive beats around your Cortina Mark III.
Obviously, when things got that big, the government put their taint on it, and so obviously, you know, it became a problem to the government that there was a collective that were thinking for themselves, striving collectively for themselves, understanding the status quo and wanting to do something about it as a collective. A social collective, a class collective, a oneness that was unparalleled as far as I'm concerned as a human being growing up in London. And I've got nothing but good feelings in regards to that.
Well, I don't think what they did ultimately was beneficial. I think people then just went to other clubs. People weren't going to stop going out and having a good time because Sterns did ultimately shut, but I think it just affected a lot of the young people because they'd been there on such a regular basis, and they were the groups of friends that they'd made. You know, it just dispersed, really, I guess, for them. Mensa would ultimately have wanted Sterns to carry on, but there's always an end to a good thing like that, I think. So, you know, Mensa knew that it was coming, and we knew that, you know, the life of Sterns was being threatened. And it did affect Mensa, but not as much as I thought it would. He actually became more positive about things when he knew that the club was going to run its natural progression, and he knew he was going to have to diversify into other areas.
Yo, it's your Captain Mensa here on behalf of Interdance and Sterns. Yeah? I'd like to thank everyone for their support over the last 3.5 years, yeah? And we'll see you soon, and we'll be back for some more!
Life for him was a lot more fun with Sterns. Sterns was a magical thing. It opened, it brought him, you know, a big project. Keeps your mind occupied. Brought him a lot of money, and it basically employed all his friends. You know, he tried to do things to make himself happy. He started smoking a lot of skunk. He became. I mean, I don't know whether he'd always smoked a lot, but I think he smoked much more afterwards.
You know, his personality, a little more stressful and paranoid about things at the end. I kind of attributed it to the cops, because most of the time when we had our chats, and you know, off the side or whatever, it just felt like that. You know, fucking police, motherfucking council, they want to fucking shut me down. You know, fucking you go out there and you fucking kick their asses. That's fucking hell yeah. You know, fucking knock them up. You know what I mean? And to be honest, that's not really that uncommon at that time. You know, dealing with the police every week and fucking with them on other things, because they probably had to be doing that too, couldn't have been easy. And by the end, I definitely saw a much more stressed out, more paranoid of what they were doing to him, and I think it was eating a lot of him out of his body. You could see it, you know.
Personal fan of Mensa, music like pulsating and slow.
Go on, just jump, just do something. Woo!
You just never imagine that day is gonna happen to you in your life. It's kind of like, when I look back on it, and even at the time I was told that is what had happened, it's like from a film. It's not like real life. You never imagine something like that is actually going to happen to you in your life. But it does. Bad things do happen, and something really bad did happen.
It was so awful. I was living in India. I had a there was no mobile phones or anything, and we used to get faxes sent over. We'd go and collect them, and I went and collected faxes. I had 3, 1 from a friend and 2 from my mum. There was one from my friend who said, I can't remember, it was chit chat, and then, God, it's really weird about Mensa, isn't it? Blah blah blah, and I thought, oh, that's weird. I wonder what happened to Mensa. I thought, oh, maybe he's been arrested or something.
I was at home and we didn't really watch television, but this particular day we'd got the television on and there was a car, and I said, oh, all mangled up. And I said, my God, that looks like Mensa's car, and thought nothing of it.
And then there was another fax. The last one I opened was from my mum, and it said, Kim, I don't know how to tell you this, other than to tell you straight, Mensa has died suddenly. He's been killed in a car crash. Ring me when you want to.
Somebody rang up and said, Mensa's dead.
We got the phone call from Rachel. I answered the phone. I just passed the phone to my brother-in-law.
There were 4 cars and he was overtaking the 4 of them, and the second car pulled out, so he went onto the verge. And it was really wet, and I suppose all the wheels skidded, and across the road there was a little wall with a little stream underneath it, and he went into the wall and came out of the sky roof. So yeah, it was all very sudden and shocking to all of us.
And we got in the car. My son was about 6 months old then, and we went over to see Rachel and spent the evening with Rachel, and it was very, very sad.
Hello to Stephen and Matthew, friends of my pal Mensa. Camera over to Mensa, please.
Hello, Stephen. Hello, Matthew.
When I was told it was a car crash, I wasn't surprised. He drove like a nutter. He really did drive like a madman. So when they said that it was a car accident, it didn't surprise me in the slightest, but such a shame. We lost a leader, we lost a warrior, we lost someone that was someone that brought community together. Let's not misunderstand Mensa's role. He wasn't a rave organising drug dealer. He was a community leader, and he did a lot of good for a lot of people, and a sad, sad loss.
I have to say that I thought it was a joke initially. Well, joke. People react in different ways, but I couldn't really grasp it initially. And then, it was a kind of a whirlwind until we put on the event that became his wake at Wave Nation. I think we dedicated the takings to Smash, who was a guy that was in the car with him. It was all kind of much of a blur. A dear friend of his, James Reynolds, organised a funeral. And it took place at the Earl of March, which was one of his favourite drinking establishments, where he'd go and have lunch on occasion with us all, and that was it.
I could just see that, you know, I think everyone fell apart at the end of it, really. It was a big shame for people like Mick Cooper who worked at Mensa. You know, anyone who worked with him for a living, that was you know, kind of the end of, I suppose, their livelihood, as well as, you know, their friendship.
I've always said from the day Mensa died, and it was even in his eulogy at his ceremony, that the day Mensa died was the day that Interdance died.
Totally dumbfounded and shocked at the news because it came like a bolt out of the blue. Probably only spoke to him 3 or 4 days beforehand, so a real shock.
When we heard Mensa was gone, it was just like a choker.
Yeah.
It was like, nah, that can't be, nah.
And things like that, you just don't forget. They're things that, even 20 years ago, it's one of them things that you just remember.
It was before the days of technology. We didn't have text messages and all this, like, so you were just getting word of mouth as you went along, and you just disbelieve it. Just absolutely shocked and gutted.
Someone told me, because I was playing down there, and I was like, no way, you know, and you know, you didn't know to first of all believe it or not, and then I think I spoke to Simon, and Simon told me, yeah, it's just tragic, really. I think he was, you know, live fast and sort of attitude towards life.
I was out of the country for a substantial time, and when I got back, I didn't realise how it happened, when it happened. All I knew was that Sterns had closed, first and foremost. And then I heard about his passing. Not the incident on how he passed, but just his passing. And I had missed absolutely everything, and I was devastated by that.
LSD from Toronto, Canada. In the room with Top Buzz, Crow. Mensa, show us your chest wig. Watch this, boys. Look at that for a chest wig, man. Fucking hell, come on, man. It's your loving.
One thing I can say, and you know, I do get on with quite a lot of promoters. There'll never be anyone that I liked as much as Mensa.
I would say Mensa lived life pretty to the fullest and did enjoy life, yeah. Mel maybe had dark times like we all do, but he never showed that. He was always full of life and, you know, wanting to make things happen.
It could never be the same for me. Couldn't be the same experience just because of that one person. I just wish he was still with us, basically. Missing him.
Mensa was a great guy to work for. I really enjoyed my time working with him. He looked after people, and he was a good egg.
He was just a very dynamic character, so people kind of he touched people, and he kind of finally put all that energy that he had into a good use. And
I think when people who don't know who Mensa was running that big nightclub, they would sort of be kind of looking for this dark suited, you know, mafia gangster type guy. But when they actually see him, they think, well, that's Mensa, because, you know, he was such a powerful guy in that music scene, but he was just one of us.
The Saturday night of that week, I felt we had to do something. I've never used a mic in my life, so get rid to Rusty, who used to MC at our club all the time. I virtually said, like, we stopped the music. I said, we'd like to say something for MC, who was killed in a car crash. Earlier in the week, he was the person who started house music in this area, and we'd like everyone to remember him for a couple of minutes. And we played Promised Land.
The whole Interdance phenomenon only lasted for 3 years. It was a relatively short time. There are collective groups of several thousand people that still follow Sterns, Interdance and Mensa. It's a testament to what he did that's lasted that long.
Different areas, and you know, end of the day, we're all together, do you know what I mean? Whether you're black, white, pink, yellow, doesn't really matter. Peace, out of here.
think Sterns ever really got to the point. It was at the point, but it had some years to go. If it wasn't for the police, his untimely passing, you know, it got cut right in a point where music was even going to other dimensions. It could have been more DJs, you know. It could have gone even longer, I think. And I think with all that combined, you know, for me anyway, I was really gutted. More so for Mensa. You know, the club, if it had to change, it had to change. But, you know, when it ended that way, I had my time with it. And, you know, the music was now starting to pop up everywhere.
I remember actually, I think 91, where they did an Interdance Ibiza. And for me, that was the first time he showed me his support for who I was as a DJ. Because obviously I was moving upwards and onwards as a DJ as well. But we had an awesome time. Probably that was one of the best times I ever had, being in Ibiza based on what we did.
He had one of the best, you know, sending off parties I think I've ever been to. And we all got together and there was more people at the crematorium than, you know, it was almost like another Sterns party. There were so many people there. And then we all ended up at the pub. It was, yeah, fantastic.
My thoughts are this love about the whole thing. It was part of the beginning of everything, and it's sad to see it end before its time. 92, 93, 94, 95, big parties. It's broken through most of the cultural barriers of the young kids in Europe. You know, in many cases, this was the hip-hop of Europe, really, you know. America, they were going hip-hop and all this other shit, you know, started kicking off. And here, the young kids, though they were probably into that stuff too, the rave music was the way you go out and experience music. And it started to even become the norm. And I think, you know, sometimes being the first one through the door, in a lot of ways, doesn't always work, you know, the way the guy's coming after you. So we'll never know. And I think that's the one thing I'm, sad about.